Yo, what is up guys, Grim here. Huo Huo vs Luocha. Who do you prefer? A question a heap of people have asked me, and I've seen around the community a lot. In today's video, we're going to search for an answer by pitting the two head to head in a variety of tests to see how they stack up. Hopefully showing off their power, where they excel and maybe don't, and ultimately which you might want to pull for or save for. To compare the two, I'm going to test both of them in Memory of Chaos 10, with a variety of what I consider to be competitive endgame team comps for Seele, Imbibitor, Jingliu, Yuan, Topaz, and Kafka. I'll be testing each of those DPS with both Huo Huo and Luocha 3 times, and across the runs we'll be retorting how fast they cleared compared to each other, if any wipes occurred or teammates died, and the overall comfort level of the teams. But in order to keep things fair, we need a battlefield that allows both characters to demonstrate their strengths and weaknesses. Memory of Chaos 10 Side 2 right now is the perfect fit. It's imaginary weak to show off Luocha's break, has plenty of debuffs to cleanse for Huo Huo, has high burst and sustained healing requirements, and is long enough to see all the potential advantages and pitfalls of each team's kit. But in particular, we'll be looking out for the following and comparing them closely. Whether or not Huo Huo's lesser skill point generation inhibits any team compositions compared to Luocha, and if Huo Huo's perma cleanses make a noticeable difference compared to Luocha's single cleanse. We'll also be looking at how each of their healing feels over the course of the fight, and whether Huo Huo's energy and attack percent boost actually contributes to faster cycle clears or more comfortable enemy kills. Now, before we get started, there absolutely is more sustains than just Huo Huo and Luocha, but we chose these two specifically to compare as they're both limited abundance, require the same materials on your account, and are in direct competition with each other. Alright, with all that said, let's dive into the tests and hopefully shed a little light on who is stronger and who you might want to aim for on your account. So we'll be using Huo Huo and Luocha in all our teams in this video. So before we get started, let me show you their builds. And as a quick note, I'll be posting the exact gear on every single character used in this video down in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Huo Huo is up first. She's got 5.8k life, 144 speed, and is of course E0. She's using an S5 Shed, fueling for a bit of extra bonus healing, but more importantly, some extra energy recharge, which we'll hopefully see some benefit from. She's got pretty good traces and a maxed out ultimate, but most importantly of all, she is using a 4-piece passerby of Wandering Cloud. This set is particularly important as it grants you an extra skill point at the start of battle when you're using the 4-piece. Huo Huo has quite a few issues with some of her openings with a number of teams we'll be using. And if you're finding your teams feeling awkward, using this set can actually really make the difference and make playing her a lot smoother and a lot easier. And I couldn't imagine playing a number of teams without it. So to top it off, she's also using a 2-piece Fleet of the Ageless. Next up is our Luocha, who has 4.8k life, 2.4k attack, and 146 speed. He's of course E0, just like Huo Huo, and I'm using an S5 multiplication on him. I have tried some other 4-star options, and I actually prefer this light tone over all of them, as it gives more speed and more skill point generation, both of which I really enjoy on Luocha. For traces, he's got good investment, and for relics, he's using 4-piece musket and 2-piece Fleet of the Ageless. Now that we've seen our competitors, let's dive into our very first team test. Our first carry we'll be running our healer comparison on is Seele. Now we won't be spending too much time on the individual builds of each character here, but as mentioned, you can find all that info down below in the video description. We'll be running Seele alongside Yuan and Pella, forming one of her most competitive teams, which normally has exceptional performance with any sustain, but might have even more potential with Huo Huo. Seele is the hyper carry most likely to abuse Huo Huo's attack buff, thanks to her talent Resurgence's buff extending capabilities on kill. But Huo Huo's main selling point, the energy recharge, in theory might be a little less used, as Seele already has absurd access to her ult thanks to her kill streaks, allowing many more skills, basics, and kill energy, all meaning Huo Huo's energy might not be as powerful on Seele. With that said, let's take a look at how she performed with our two healers. So taking a look at the results, here we can see that with identical teams, Huo Huo actually allowed Seele to clear 1 cycle faster than Luocha. And in all 3 runs with both healers, neither faced any risk of dying, thanks to Seele narrowing down the enemy count quickly. Skill points also weren't an issue when playing either, as Seele prefers to use her basics to finish enemies off in place of her skill anyways, making her skill point neutral a good amount of the time. Huo Huo's ultimate boost on the other hand felt more impactful than expected, thanks to the combo of Huo Huo and Tingyun granting near permanent uptime on Seele's buffed state. It felt I always had Seele's ultimate available, and in our tests, that's one thing that contributed to Huo Huo's faster clear. The attack percent boost also felt strong, putting enemies previously out of range within one-shot distance of Seele's basic attacks, skills, and ultimates. So when comparing Huo Huo to Luocha for Seele, I preferred Huo Huo for the offensive boost and additional ultimates, allowing Seele to more easily chain kills together, which was what she's all about. And as skill points and healing weren't an issue, I didn't feel like there was any downside to using her either. Luocha certainly does have some nice bonuses, but if you're just after damage for Seele, Huo Huo would be my choice. Our next carry is Jingliu, who will also be partnering up with Tingyun and Pella. This team isn't Jingliu's strongest, that honor goes to Bronya team comps, but it is still massively strong and has increased synergy thanks to the double energy combo of Tingyun and Huo Huo, which we just learned is incredibly powerful from Seele. So when taking a look at Jingliu's kit in both teams, she isn't skill point hungry, so both Huo Huo's downside and Luocha's upside shouldn't have too much impact on her teams. But looking at Huo Huo's ultimate synergy specifically, it's a different story, and it could have both insane and mediocre potential for Jingliu. The attack boost portion isn't fantastic, as Jingliu already has so much attack from her talent, but the energy portion has incredible potential to extend her burst windows, giving this combo huge potential to pull ahead of standard healers. So let's see how they did. So after all the tests, the Huo Huo team actually managed to edge out the Luocha team by a full cycle. The combination of extra damage and energy definitely made a huge difference. Let's break it down further though. So as with Seele, survival was no issue with either Huo Huo or Luocha, even with Jingliu's life drain. And as predicted, skill points even with Huo Huo weren't an issue, partly thanks to the extra energy Jingliu gained from Huo Huo's ult. Surprisingly though, Huo Huo's attack boost was far more noticeable than expected, especially when comparing the two healers' runs side by side. The energy boost also felt crazy and extended Jingliu's transmigration state significantly, and I even found myself using it to quickly re-enter the transmigration state in a pinch, as shown in this clip here, where we use it to get a quick enemy execution before he gets off all of his mechanics. So when comparing the two healers when playing Jingliu, I actually did prefer Huo Huo over Luocha. She provided more options, damage, and most importantly, fun. However, if I was playing with Bronya, I think I'd lean a little more towards Luocha as a safer pick, due to his skill point generation. But given enough team investment and careful play, I think Huo Huo could also work with Bronya and Jingliu. Imbibitor is up next, and will of course be giving him what is considered one of his strongest teams, consisting of himself, Tingyun, and Yukong. It is worth noting though that the Yukong I'll be testing with is E6, so your mileage may vary. So as for our pre-test theory crafting gear, Luocha is known to be a godlike sustain for Imbibitor. But alternatively, Huo Huo in theory should be one of the most difficult characters to run with him because of his massive skill point consumption. Huo Huo is certainly at a disadvantage here. However, the one potential saving factor for her with this combo is that granting Imbibitor more ultimates reduces his skill point consumption, and thanks to the Huo Huo Tingyun combo, he might just be able to overcome this weakness. Well, let's find out. So taking a look at the results here, we have our first dead heat, with both Luocha and Huo Huo scoring 2 cycles each. It is worth mentioning though that the Huo Huo team was incredibly close to a 1 cycle. But most importantly, how did it feel to play? So as usual, I had no issue surviving with either healer across all of the tests, even with the skill point pressure on Huo Huo. And to my shock, that pressure was actually incredibly manageable. Now I did find myself using Huo Huo's skill a little less than I usually do to ensure my Imbibitor, Tingyun, and Yukong could use their skills as needed, but it never impacted my Huo Huo's ultimate uptime or her ability to heal. Overall, a very pleasant surprise. The attack boost, as with the two characters before him, felt impactful and was active during most of Imbibitor's burst windows. But the energy boost from Huo Huo felt like the saving grace of the team, granting him ultimates more quickly enough that the pressure we spoke about earlier was manageable. Overall, between the two though, Luocha is probably still a sustained character I'd bring alongside Imbibitor. Huo Huo did feel like she provided a faster clear, but I was definitely sacrificing her healing compared to the other teams we already discussed. And if the fight was harder or things went poorly and I needed to use her skill more, my Imbibitor certainly would have lost damage. Both are viable, but Luocha feels more comfortable and is more flexible when it comes to team building. This may change in the future though after the support Hanya is released, who specializes in easy skill point generation. Yuan is next to test, and we'll be running him with a team consisting of Jingliu and Asta, a team many consider to be exceptionally strong for the general, providing damage, speed, and a ton of energy, which should only be enhanced more by Huo Huo. So as for our pre-result predictions, well, Yuan's skill point requirements aren't high, meaning Huo Huo in theory should be mostly upside for him compared to Luocha, so we'll be expecting her to have an edge. Going a bit deeper though, theoretically the attack percent boost from Huo Huo is excellent for Yuan, as he has none of that in his kit, and it lasts multiple turns, affecting the Lightning Lord. The energy, on the other hand, might be much less impactful, as Yuan's ultimate doesn't necessarily gain power when used more frequently. His normal teams can usually achieve 8 to 10 stacks of Lightning Lord without help, meaning Huo Huo's ultimate acceleration might not yield huge gains for Jing compared to everyone else we've tested so far. Well, let's see if that's true or not. So from the results here, we can see that both Huo Huo and Luocha cleared with the same cycle count, somewhat as expected. As always, survival was no issue across all runs, with either healer, even though fights were longer than ones we've seen so far, at 4 cycles each. And in both teams, skill points were overflowing for both Luocha and Huo Huo, allowing supports and Huo Huo herself to use their skills more frequently to eke out a bit more energy and, as a result, benefits. But unfortunately, despite that extra energy on Huo Huo and the freedom to use skill points as she saw fit, Huo Huo's ultimate felt underwhelming, which is absolutely why her team cleared at a similar rate to Luocha, at least in my test. Between Jingliu and Asta, Yuan already gains a lot of attack percent, so Huo Huo's ult bonus is diminished somewhat, and as theorized, despite gaining his ultimate more quickly, many times it was too fast. This led to the Lightning Lord reaching 10 stacks too quickly, creating a scenario where Jing had to waste energy and hold the ult for after the Lord smashes, or use it early and waste stacks when he was already at 10. Overall, both sustain's skill point economy, sustain, and overall damage output felt pretty similar, so either one of them is perfectly suitable for Jing. But as skill points and survival weren't an issue, I'd give Huo Huo a slight edge, as she has better crowd control recovery and does offer some damage increases, which overall will increase clear time, even if only slightly. Switching out Asta for a night healing support may also increase performance, as the Lord won't stack quite as fast and the attack percent buffs won't be quite as high. Topaz is next, and I decided to run her alongside Clara this time, as the turbulence I'm currently testing on is particularly good for her, and people reported that she was the best partner for Topaz in the MOC we're currently in. The third member of this team is Jingliu, creating a very different team combo than we've seen far, one consisting of 2 DPS. Alright, prediction time. Double damage teams generally use heaps of skill points, but Clara and Topaz are a bit of an exception to that rule. Clara is slower than most carries, and Topaz can be played SP positive or neutral without losing too much damage, making this combo skill point friendly. This might give Huo Huo a slight edge over Luocha. And in theory, having Huo Huo's ultimate buffing 2 characters at once should also be quite strong, and the fact that Clara and Topaz both have decently strong ultimates should help as well, so let's see how they did. Alright, so surprisingly, despite the double buffs, Luocha and Huo Huo tied, with both clearing in 3 cycles. This was absolutely not a result I was expecting, and to understand the detail, we'll need to break this down. Now, as always, survival wasn't an issue with either healer, but skill points when playing Huo Huo went a little different than expected. So the skill points weren't uncomfortable to manage and the team worked, but sometimes I did have to skip out on either Topaz or Clara's skill to use Huo Huo's optimal energy and healing rotation. Now, this didn't feel like it was a damage loss, but it could have been a contributing factor to her tying with Luocha despite the double buffs. Also, the ultimate attack buff actually felt a little tricky to nail at times, because Clara and Topaz's damage is so spread out, making it difficult to align just right. The energy boost, on the other hand, felt impactful, granting all three characters ultimates ridiculously fast. And for this combo specifically, you can actually avoid a common issue. When you use Tingyun's ultimate on Topaz, Clara sometimes loses her taunt, but because Huo Huo gives her a bit of bonus energy, you can actually keep it up comfortably and avoid this scenario. So for this combo, I feel you could kind of go either way on which sustain you might prefer. Huo Huo definitely provides more damage, but you might have to skip out on a Clara or Topaz skill here or there, which makes it a little more vague. But Luocha provides such an absurd amount of healing with his team, it's not even a joke. Combining him with Clara and Topaz truly feels like immortality. He also provides greater flexibility in a pinch, making him maybe more of a comfortable pick this time. Last up, we have Kafka, and another double damage team composition. We'll be running her alongside Guanifan and Asta, forming one of the strongest Kafka dot teams right now, hopefully primed to take advantage of Huo Huo's double buffing action. Now, as for predictions, dot characters primarily scale off attack, meaning Huo Huo's ult boost should be strong in theory. Her ultimate energy could also have potential, but sub-DPS characters like Guanifan unfortunately carry most of their power outside of their ults. That goes for Sampo and Luca as well. Because of this, Huo Huo's main offering is more Kafka ultimates, but it's worth noting Kafka's ultimate isn't the bulk of her damage either. To top it off, Kafka teams can also be quite skill point hungry, depending on the secondary damage DPS picked. So overall, this one might lean a little towards Luocha. But with so many unknowns, let's dive into the results to see how each team went. So for our final result here, we have yet another tie, with both Huo Huo and Luocha achieving identical cycle clear times. Let's get into the detail. So as we know by now, survival isn't an issue with either healer, but skill point and rotation management was a bit trickier this time. Of course, with Luocha, skill points weren't an issue, but with Huo Huo, they felt manageable, but a little difficult. My Guanifan often had to exclusively use her basic attack in long stretches of the fight, just to ensure Asta and Kafka could continually use their skill, while Huo Huo healed. Another problem I encountered was some difficulty applying Kafka's shock from her follow-up at the right time. Because Huo Huo wants to use her skill semi-frequently, but particularly on the very first turn of a battle, a different team member needs to basic the enemy to kick things off, or you'll have to start with a Kafka's technique, giving up another valuable entry technique. Another reason could be that DOT damage is super spread out, making timing Huo Huo's ultimate for a huge burst a little bit tricky. And both Guanifan and Kafka's ultimates also didn't feel as impactful as other carries tested, meaning the energy recharge portion of Huo Huo's kit also felt less enticing. In conclusion, Huo Huo felt less impactful for Kafka than expected, but I still preferred her over Luocha, as when playing him I felt I had more skill points than I knew what to do with, only resulting in a few extra skills for Guanifan, which didn't really achieve too much. Alright, so overall, after all our tests, we have found some pretty interesting information, so let's put it all together to hopefully give you a better idea who you might want to level, save for, or pull for. Luocha is up first. Luocha's skill point generation allows for heavy skill point teams and greater flexibility all around. But his biggest strength is funneling his bonus skill points into a more SP intensive support like Bronya, which we unfortunately didn't get a chance to use this time. So he definitely has a lot of utility because of this point. Luocha's healing also felt more comfortable than Huo Huo's outside of situations where multiple cleanses were required. Most of Huo Huo's heals occur on her or her ally's turn, unless you use an ultimate. So in emergency situations, you can find yourself in serious trouble compared to Luocha, who has his auto heal. Luocha's buff stripping abilities can also be a game changer in certain encounters. We didn't use them here, but this effect alone can easily save allies from death or allow for faster clears by removing revival or high defense effects. So what about Huo Huo though? Well, Huo Huo's energy generation is her main bonus, and based on our testing, it's at worst a nice bonus and at best team defining. But right now, it feels like there aren't too many characters that take advantage of it fully. The attack boost on the other hand was most impactful on characters with burst windows that didn't already have a ton of attack percentage. Imbibitor, Seele, and Jingliu all had burst windows and felt great with this buff, and I'd aim to focus on it with other characters that are similar. Now in the cleansing department, Huo Huo absolutely dominates Luocha. She has 7 cleanses that automatically apply to the whole team, making her the clear winner in fights with heavy cleanse requirements, and it allows you to ignore some game mechanics entirely. But Huo Huo isn't just good at the moment, she has huge future potential as well. Skill points, her biggest downside, don't feel bad now, but a new skill point support Hanya is releasing, which may make running her a lot easier. Additionally, as characters with more powerful ultimates release, Huo Huo will only see her stock rise. In conclusion, Luocha and Huo Huo both easily sustain all endgame content, but each have clear strengths and weaknesses. For a traditional and safer healer that hinders enemies, Luocha is likely a more comfortable pick, but if you're looking for insane combos and some big future potential with higher risk and reward, Huo Huo is my personal choice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I wasn't able to test every character or team, but if you've got experience with Huo Huo and a character I missed, which is insanely powerful, be sure to let me know down below, and until next time, cheers.